Again, my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We're a financial services company in Oakland, offer financial planning. We do tax preparation. We do accounting for small businesses, et cetera. A little bit about my background. I'm a licensed stockbroker. I've been licensed for roughly 19 years. My goal as a stockbroker is to help my clients create wealth, maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime, the lifetime of their children, and God willing, the lifetime of their grandchildren. I am also a certified retirement counselor. And my goal as a certified retirement counselor is to help each and every one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. What exactly does that mean? That means my goal is to help you get to 100% of your salary, right? And oftentimes you can use deferred comp for that. Most people with the county use deferred comp for that. But I'm not really pushing deferred comp per se. This is really about retirement readiness, gearing up for a greater future. So we'll spend 30, 45 minutes on the presentation. And then, like I said, like Mike said, we'll stick around towards the end and answer some questions. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started here.
And Gene, we do have a question right off the bat that was actually from the other part of the seminar. And it might be a quick question. Can you elect to pull all of your vacation cash out into deferred comp?
You can elect to use vacation cash outs to go into deferred comp up to the maximum.
And this is the, just to be clear, this is like the terminal payment at the, when you stop working.
Okay, let me make sure. So a person retires from the county, they still have vacation on the books.
Correct. And then they're going to get cashed out for it.
They're going to get cashed out. Yeah, perfect. Yes, you can use that money and deposit that into deferred comp up to the max. If you're 50 and over when you retire, you can contribute up to $26,000 a year. If you retire before 50, the most you can put in is $19,500. If this is something that you're interested in, I encourage you to contact Darnell Williams as soon as possible if retirement is coming. So darnell.williams@acgov.org. Okay.
Thanks, Gene.
My pleasure. All right. So let's, this is pretty much what we're going to cover today, the retirement mile markers, right? I always look at this as, this is similar to, the various checkups or the various blood tests you should take and exams you should take with a doctor at various ages. When you're 40, you should do blood tests. You should do, when you're 50 for men, colonoscopies. At certain ages, it's important to get a breast exam, et cetera. So that's similar to what we're talking about here. But the retirement mile markers, in a nutshell, we're going to conduct a situation analysis. We're going to cover retirement income. We'll talk about Social Security. I'm not going to spend a whole lot. I'm going to speed through the health insurance. Mike did an excellent job of covering that. And I would encourage you to check in with SARA again on the health insurance in terms of Medicare. We'll talk briefly about estate planning, drawdown strategies such as how much is appropriate to take out of your account per year to put yourself in a position not to run out of money before you pass away. And then lastly, we'll talk about the required minimum distribution process. So let's start with the current analysis. One of the analysis that I like to use for my clients and for many Alameda County employees, and I want you guys to jot this down. And this is just, ballpark. What I want you to do is I want you to write down what your current gross salary is per year. Okay, write down roughly what your current gross annual salary is. Okay. The next step is I want you to subtract 50% of your salary. So you're writing down your current salary, you're subtracting out half of that. I want you to write that down. So if you make 100, I want you to subtract 50. Okay. The next step is I want you to subtract, we'll say $24,000. $24,000. Okay. So once you wrote down your current salary, annual salary per year, you subtracted 50% of that, you subtracted 24,000, and then do the math, see what's remaining. You probably have a shortfall. And what I want you to do is multiply that shortfall times 20. Multiply that shortfall times 20. That is roughly how much you're going to need in retirement savings when you retire. Okay, it's probably going to be a big number. So that's, in a nutshell, my current situation analysis, how I go about retirement planning. Now, I'm sure you're also thinking, okay, well, what do these numbers represent? Well, 50% of your salary that you subtracted out is what I'm estimating that you're going to receive from a SARA. Obviously, that's an estimate. Obviously, your situation may be completely different. Maybe you'll get more, maybe you'll get less. So that's where it's important for you to go to SARAorg, go to Mike's group, create a user ID and password, find out exactly what you should anticipate receiving at various ages from a SARA. Okay? That 24,000 represents Social Security, assuming that you've paid into Social Security, assuming that you're eligible, right? That's just an estimate. I don't know what your personal situation is, so that's why it's important to log into ssa.gov, create a user ID, password to determine exactly what you're going to receive from Social Security, right? So that's a process I'd like for each and every one of you to go through to determine whether or not you've saved enough towards retirement. We know what the goal is. What that goal is 20 times whatever your shortfall is. And that's just an estimate. So at least you know that's the number you need to hit when you retire. Once you start to receive income, I'm just going to kind of give you a ballpark number of what percent of your retirement income comes from where, right? Now, early on, I talked about my goal is to help you get to 100% of your salary, right? Many financial planners, and I think Mike touched on this, many financial planners, retirement counselors, et cetera, tell folks that you don't need 100% of your salary. You'll need roughly 70, 80%, right? Some of you are thinking, well, why not 100? Why 70 to 80? Well, there's a lot of costs that go away in retirement. And I'm sure you can think of costs that will go away in retirement. Number one, do you have to pay into Social Security any longer after you retire? Nope. Do you have to pay into a SARA any longer after you retire? Nope, doesn't apply, right? Do you pay union dues anymore in retirement? I talked about paying into Social Security. So there's a lot of costs that will go away in retirement. So you may not need 100% of your salary. 70 to 80% may be appropriate, right? But many retirees can expect to receive roughly, I'd say 40% of their retirement income will come from Social Security, okay? I know there's a lot of anxiety out there about Social Security. It is my opinion, Social Security will be around when it comes time for you to collect it, right? It's future generations that may take the hit, but many of us that are pretty close to retirement in our 50s, definitely in our 60s, we can expect to pay into, we should expect to receive a Social Security benefit currently, okay, if you've paid into it. Roughly, and this is not necessarily for you, but this is Throughout the United States, roughly 20% of a person's income will come from a pension. You guys are in a much better position. If you do a significant amount of time, you're definitely going to get more than 20%. But on average, you're looking at your income consisting of 20% is going to be your pension. 5% or in that neighborhood is other. That's, inheritance. You hit the lotto, right? But the bulk of your money is going to come from savings and earnings, right? Your 457B, 401k, IRA accounts, and unfortunately, working, right? Some of you may have to work to make ends meet because you haven't generated enough in your deferred comp accounts. And that's unfortunate. I mean, I have failed miserably as the local financial guidance counselor if anyone has to go back to work after retirement. Now, I'm not in any way suggesting that you should just stop working completely. I want you to continue to work. I would encourage that. But doing something that you love, doing something part-time to keep you busy, keep you sharp, nothing wrong with that. But there's a difference between working because you have to and working because you want to. Okay? Here are the various suggested milestones. You have age 50, contribution checkup, right? If you're 50 and over, you can put away $26,000 a year. So the question is, how close are you to that 26,000? Some of you, when you were 49, the most you can do is 19,500. So why not just bump it up a little bit to get to that 50 and over minimum? So do a contribution checkup. Once you turn 59 and a half, you no longer are subject to under 59 and a half tax penalties. Now, this tax penalty does not apply to deferred comp because that's a completely different tax code. Deferred comp is under tax code 457B. But if you have an IRA, you have a 403B, you have a 401k, those types of plans are subject to a 10% penalty. You may have that at previous jobs, right? So you can actually access that money penalty free. Still on the hook for taxes, but no penalty. But I would encourage you, if you're not really retired, don't tap the money if you don't need it. Don't tap it because you can. Wait and let it continue to grow, let it continue to compound until it's time for you to retire. And then you can start withdrawing some of that money. But again, don't touch it just because you can. Age 62 is another milestone. That's that's the age you can collect Social Security at the earliest. Again, don't collect Social Security just because you can, because if you collect it this early, then you're going to be subject to a 30% haircut on what you could have gotten at full retirement. And if you're 62 collecting Social Security and you're working, more of your Social Security will be taxed. So you want to be careful there. 65 is the age in which you could sign up for Medicare. So I would encourage that, but double back with a SARAorg, go through those seminars and confirm whether or not 65 makes sense for you to sign up for Medicare. For many of you on the call, if your full Social Security benefits, you can collect it at 66. That's if you were born before 1960. If you were born after 1960, full Social Security benefits is 67. So that's another milestone. 70 is the latest you could collect Social Security. You can get a little bit of a bump. You'll get 30% more out of Social Security if you waited beyond full retirement age. And then 72 is when you're mandated by law to at least take out that minimum required distribution, which is roughly 4%. Okay, so those are the different suggested milestones. And now let me dive into these milestones in a little bit more detail. Okay, so let's say you're under 50. These are the things that you want to be thinking about, right? Continue your accumulation, right? The max for a person who's under 50 is 19,500. So you want to try to get as close as possible to that max, or at least come up with a plan to build towards that over time. Maybe you want to increase your paycheck contributions by $100 a year. Let's try to quickly get to that 19,500 as soon as you can. The other thing you want to do when you're under 50 is review your asset allocation. It's possible when you were in your 20s, you're a risky person. You like to roll the dice. And say you put 100% of your money in the stock market. And now you're 45, maybe you're not as aggressive as you once were. So you want to review your asset allocation. Maybe you feel more comfortable instead of putting 100% in the stock market, putting 80, right? Or putting 70 or 60, so review your asset allocation, review your retirement strategy. There's two buckets in deferred comp. You can invest pre-tax, you can invest after-tax Roth, or you can put a little money in both. So review your strategy. Talk to your CPA, your tax preparer. See if maybe moving more money into the after-tax Roth deferred comp makes more sense. Start at least thinking about estate planning. If you have kids, you own a home, you definitely want to start thinking about estate planning. Within an estate plan, you have a living trust, you have wills, you have healthcare directives, you have a durable power of attorney. So there's a lot that goes into estate planning that you want to consider at this age. I would encourage you reach out to the Employee Assistance Program. From what I understand, they might be able to help you hire an estate planning attorney at a reduced rate. So those are some things you want to start thinking about. Estate planning is not just for the super rich or the ultra rich. You have, if you own a home in San Francisco Bay Area, that's something you make sure it's protected. You want to make sure that your beneficiaries can avoid probate. And we'll talk about probate a little bit later. Help map out or map out a course. And we talked about that earlier on the previous slide, where you wrote down your 100% of your salary, you subtracted half, you subtracted what you're going to receive from Social Security, and you came up with that shortfall. You multiply that times 20, right? We're mapping out a course. The first step is to determine how much you're going to need. We'll have that. And then we'll come up with a strategy to help you get there. Okay. Now you're 50 plus. Okay. Very important age. You're really, really close to retirement. These are the crucial years where you want to be thinking about maxing out and catching up. You want to, again, fine tune your estate planning. You want to make sure that your beneficiaries are appropriate. And I'll talk about that on the next slides. 2021 IRS limits. You're under 50, you can put away $19,500. That's $750 a paycheck. You can add an additional $6,500, bringing the total to 26. If you're 50 and over, that's roughly $1,000 a paycheck. I covered that earlier. I just wanted to bring that up once again, make sure everyone was listening. If you're interested in putting even more money away towards retirement, you have that option of setting up an IRA. You would be able to set up the IRA through the county or through deferred comp. You'd have to go to credit union or go to your local bank or brokerage company. You're under 50, you can put away $6,000. If you're 50 and over, you can put away $1,000. There's nothing to prevent you from doing both, right? But with the IRA, you may or may not be able to deduct that money. That all depends on how much money you make, okay? So if you have a financial advisor, they should be able to tell you, or if you have a CPA, tax preparer, they'll tell you whether or not you can actually deduct the full $6,000 or $7,000, or if it's a portion, okay? You can take advantage of the last 3-year special catch-up. This is where you can put away $39,000 a year for 3 years, right? Provided that you qualify, right? You can't do the $26,000 for being under 50 and the 39. No, it's a total of $39,000 that you can put away for 3 years before retirement. The earliest you can take advantage of this program is 54 and a half. Okay, so you have to at least be 54 and a half. And then the next step is to contact Darnell Williams again to see if you qualify. What's the process for qualifying? Well, what Darnell does, he'll go through your work history and see if there were years in which you could have contributed more, right? So most people will qualify. For example, let's say you first started with the county, when you're in your 20s, you couldn't afford to contribute to deferred comp. So those were years you could have put money in. So he kind of does the math. Then he'll come back to you to say, hey, you can participate. This is how much it's going to cost per paycheck. Okay. So it's a pretty simple process. $39,000 is a lot of money. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, how in the world can anybody afford putting that much money into deferred comp? Right. But I'll ask you this, some of you probably have some money sitting in a credit union. Do you have any money sitting in a credit union, right? In a CD or in a money market that's earning 0%, right? That's money you can indirectly contribute to deferred comp, right? So what you do is you tell Darnell, all right, I want you to take half my paycheck. You get paid, you're short. All you have to do is go to that savings account at the credit union to pay your bills. And then once your savings account dwindles back to a number that you feel comfortable with, say you're left with $5,000, then you can go to Darnell and say, okay, Darnell, I want you to put my contribution amount back to $500 a check or $200 a check or whatever it is. Okay. And you can only do that for 3 years. And then you'll have to go back to the standard maximum limit of 26 or at 26,000 if you're 50 and over. Let's talk about estate planning a little bit. All right, I'm not an estate planning attorney. I just want to just kind of give you an overview. Estate planning will save you quite a bit in taxes, depending on how much you leave in your estate. You want to determine whether or not a will is appropriate or a trust or both. A will, I will say, a lot of people come to me and say, Gene, I have a will, so I should be covered, right? Well, I say that, no, you're not covered, because a will it's better than nothing, but it's still subject to probate, right? And I'll talk a little bit about probate in the next couple of slides, but do I need to set up a trust? If you have any assets whatsoever, you own a home in the Bay Area, you probably want to register the house under the trust. Okay. I'm sure you have some very, very special items that are probably earmarked for maybe your granddaughter or grandson, or maybe your kids, right? But don't assume that it's going to automatically happen. I would strongly encourage you, that's something that should go into your estate plan so it's clear. Now, you may think, I have kids, my kids get along, they love one another, right? It shouldn't be an issue if something were to unexpectedly happen to me. But I will tell you this, at least in my experience, it can really get ugly even amongst family members that really love each other when it comes to money. Things happen. It sometimes becomes a matter of principle, right? Why are you getting this and when I should? Oftentimes it can be petty. So I encourage you to make sure everything is written down, that your wishes are written down so it's completely clear, and it makes it easy on everyone. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to guess, right? It's already written down. It's clear. All they have to do is just follow the instructions. Probate is that process by which a person passes away. It's not in a trust. It goes into the newspaper. Your beneficiaries, who you would think is my kids, clearly everything should go to my kids, but that's not how it works. Your beneficiaries would need to go to probate court. They'll need to pay roughly 25% of what your assets are worth. The court proceeding is listed in the newspaper for 6 months to a year. This allows an opportunity for distant relatives to make a claim on your estate. Sounds ridiculous, but it can happen. They can make a claim that Mary had promised to give me $100,000. Your kids know that's not true, but they can make that case. So you want to be careful. And that's where creating a living trust is appropriate. You skip probate when you have a living trust. Holding your property jointly is important, right? But it's not the end all be all when it comes to probate. For example, there's two ways in which you can hold property jointly. There's joint with rights of survivorship, and then there's joint tenants in common. What are the differences between the two? Typically, husband and wives or married spouses hold their property joint with rights of survivorship. So if one person passes away, all of the asset goes to whomever the remaining spouse is. There's no probate, right? But and that's how banks operate when they're setting up accounts. They assume, spouses, the account should automatically be set up joint with rights of survivorship. They don't even ask any questions. But if a person or persons come in and they're not married, banks typically assume it's joint tenants in common. How does joint tenants in common work? Well, the account is split 50-50. And if one person passes away, that person's 50% goes to probate, right? It goes to their estate. So that's problematic, right? There's an item that has to go through probate. You got to jump through all those hoops. So be careful if you're not married and you're changing accounts. Make sure it's set up appropriately. There's nothing wrong with two people who are not married to set up their accounts joint with rights of survivorship. You just have to remember to ask and confirm with your banker or whomever's helping you with the financial transaction. Naming a beneficiary, you don't have to worry about probate. That does not apply. So if any account where you can list a beneficiary, it is not a probatable asset, right? It doesn't go through probate. All that person has to do, the beneficiary has to do, is come in, show their ID, and then they can inherit that money. And you can go online on the Prudential website to change your beneficiaries or update your beneficiaries. I encourage each and every one of you to at least review your beneficiaries whenever there's some sort of a life-changing event. You get married. Obviously, you want your ex off and your new spouse on, right? You have kids, another child, a grandchild. Whenever there's some huge life-changing event, that's the time you want to really confirm who your beneficiaries are. Okay. Now, some of you probably have not updated your beneficiaries on the website, and you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even have beneficiaries. Don't panic. You probably do have beneficiaries. Prudential added this feature where you can go online to add your beneficiary maybe a year or two ago. So many of you who signed up for deferred comp years ago, you gave the treasurer's office a document that showed the beneficiary. So I'm sure that is on file. So if you want to confirm that, just go to Darnell's group, tell them who you are, tell them you want to see exactly who your beneficiaries are, and then they will look it up. But you can always just go online and add it. We always use whatever the latest information we received or Prudential receives, that's going to be used as the official record. Okay. Tax diversification. Remember earlier I talked about you have the option of investing pre-tax or after-tax Roth. And this is kind of an example where diversification in terms of taxes makes sense. So let's say hypothetically, you have $500,000 sitting in deferred comp. And on the left, you only have your money invested pre-tax. If you pull out $50,000 from your account, assuming you're in a 12 to 15% tax bracket, I don't know what the math is, but comes out to $6,000 in taxes, you're going to net $44,000. Okay, that's on the left. Now, let's say on the right, you have a person that had $250,000 pre-tax in deferred comp, and maybe they have pre-tax and they have $250,000 in the Roth 457 or Roth deferred comp. And that same person wants to take out the 50, but they're taking 25 out of each bucket. Remember, the Roth version of deferred comp, there's no taxes. Provided that you're at least 59 and a half and the account's been open for 5 years, you don't pay taxes. You only have to pay taxes on the left-hand side, pre-tax. So your tax liability is $3,000. So you net 47. Now, I'm not in any way suggesting one is better than the other. That's where you want to go to check with your tax person, tax preparer, CPA. But if you want to circle back with me, schedule an appointment to get my take on which option makes the most sense, I'm certainly available for that. But just keep in mind, doesn't hurt to make sure that the income that you receive is diversified. Part pre-tax, part Roth, that's after tax, that's no taxes. Okay. All right, here's another milestone. You're 60 plus years old. These are some things you want to be thinking about. When to collect Social Security, determining full retirement age, calculating your benefits and taxes, whether or not you have to pay taxes. Okay. This slide represents the various years a person is born and when their full retirement age is. So say you were born in 1957. Full retirement is 66 and 6 months. Right? If you were born after 1960, then full retirement is 67. Extremely important to log on to ssa.gov, create a user ID and password, determine exactly what full retirement is for you. Another comment. I've had participants call me and say, guess what? Social Security doesn't have the correct birth date, right? I'm 66 and 8 months, and they have me listed at 62 in 6 months or whatever. So the point is you want to confirm your birth date, and that's why it's important to log on to the website. Not only do you want to check out what your benefits will be when you retire, but confirm your birth date on the site. To be eligible for Social Security, you just have to pay into it for at least 40 quarters, 10 years. And I'm sure many of you probably have paid into it for that amount of time. So that's not an issue, but you have to pay into it. If you work someplace that where you don't pay into Social Security, well, it's not going to apply. To Social Security wouldn't apply. Okay. So just, 10 years is the amount of time that you have to at least pay into Social Security in order to expect a benefit. Earning history, how the benefits calculated, they take a snapshot of your 35 years of work history, right? If you, for example, didn't work for 35 years, maybe you worked 25 years, then 10 years of that time would be considered zero. So obviously that's going to reduce the amount of Social Security benefits that you'll receive. But they look at your 35-year history. That's another thing you want to look at when you log on and confirm. Not only do you want to confirm your birthday, but you want to confirm that Social Security Administration has the right earning history for you. Okay, the joy of delayed gratification. I talked about it earlier. As you get older, the past 62, your benefit goes up. So here's an example of a person. If they decided to collect Social Security at 62, they get 18,000. If they waited until full retirement, they'll get 24. Oh, and if they waited until 70, they would get 32. Okay, now I'm sure many of you are probably thinking, well, Gene, I don't need the money. I think I'm going to wait until I'm 70, right? My take is this. Typically, if you're in good health, you have good genes, you have parents, grandparents, et cetera, that lived into their 90s. When you do the math, waiting until age 70 makes the most sense. But here's the deal. We don't know what your life expectancy is. We don't know what could happen to you. Just because you have good genes doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make it into your 90s. I always talk about, if you've ever heard my presentations, I always talk about the 3 phases of retirement, right? You have your no-go phase. No, you have your go-go phase. You have your slow-go phase, and then your no-go phase, right? Your go-go phase is that phase when you first retire. You're healthy. You're ripping and running. You don't mind going to the airport and going through the strip search, right? You can walk from terminal to terminal, not a problem. I encourage you to take advantage of that, but you never get a warning in terms of when you're going to go to that slow-go phase. You definitely don't get a warning when you get to that no-go phase. So in my opinion, I'd rather you enjoy your money while you're in that go-go phase I encourage folks to collect it at full retirement, not wait until you're 70, but that's your call. That's up to you, because you never know. It would be sad to think that, you're waiting until 70 and then all of a sudden you have a medical condition, right? And you slip into that no-go phase and you didn't even have an opportunity to enjoy that Social Security. So I'd rather you collect it at full retirement now. But if you're age 62, you got to retire early from the county. Maybe you have some health issues. Maybe it's okay for you to collect it early at age 62. You don't think you're going to be around for another 10, 20 years. So enjoy your money while you can. But check with your spouse, domestic partner, significant other. Bounce some ideas. Talk to your CPA. You can consult with me. I can help you, guide you in the right direction in terms of when to collect it. But just reach out and get some help on that. Okay, taxes on Social Security. This is more of a tax question. I would encourage you to confirm the information with your CPA. But typically, if you make over a certain amount while you're collecting Social Security, 50% of it could be taxable and up to 85% could be taxable, right? So keep that in mind. Especially if you're collecting it early at 62, that's where it could really be taxable if you make over $25,000 if you're single, or $32,000 if you're married. But go on to the ssa.gov website. They'll give you more information on the taxability of your Social Security, and then also check with your CPA. Okay, 65, that's that Medicare age. You want to come up with a withdrawal strategy. What do I mean by a withdrawal strategy? One of the biggest fears of many retirees is running out of money. It's the last thing you want to do is run out of money, right? So you want to make a determination as to how much should you take out every year to put you in a better position to never run out of money, right? 4% is the standard number you want to at least start with. So just take your account balance times 4%. That's what you should take out year one. And then you should go back and take a look at your spending patterns, take a look at performance on your accounts, and then maybe you need to adjust that upwards. Maybe you did what your accounts did well, and now you can take out 5%, or maybe we're going through a bear market and you're going to have to reduce your spending from 4% to 3.5%. So you want to take a look at that at least once a year. Don't just rest on 4% and just keep going with that. Review that every year. Like I said before, I'm switching gears a little bit. I'm not going to touch on health insurance. I'm going to let the folks at SARA, especially in that department that deals with health insurance, have a conversation with them and they can help you with that. So let's say, hypothetically, you have $500,000 sitting in deferred comp. What are your options? Well, one of the options is to leave the money in the plan. Why not? Right? I would encourage you, go through your different statements, see what the performance was on deferred comp, right? Why move your account or do anything differently if deferred comp has been treating you well? You're consistently getting double-digit returns. Why not? Leave it in the plan. You don't pay any commissions. You have the luxury of being a part of $1 billion plan, so fee structure is huge. You get bare minimum in terms of costs. You get a stable value that pays almost 2%, right? Now, even though you retire, there's still going to be a cost associated with deferred comp, even though it's minimal. The cost, whether you're retired or still with the county in deferred comp, it's 0.20% per year. 0.20% per year. So if you're even considering rolling your money out, because you have that option, you can roll it to an IRA, just, ask the question, how much are you going to charge me? Is it more than a 0.20%? And then make your decision, right? Now, there are some of you that say, hey, Gene, I want to invest in stocks. I want to buy Apple, or I want to buy Amazon. I'm not in any way endorsing those stocks. I'm just throwing out examples. We don't offer the ability to invest in individual stocks in deferred comp. They're mostly mutual funds or separate accounts. So maybe that's the reason why you want to move your money out, and that's fine. Or maybe you want to invest in real estate. You're a big real estate person and you want to use your money for that. We can't do it here with the county, so you'd have to roll your money out to make that happen. Okay, but at least do your homework. Consider leaving your money in the plan. Okay, turn your savings into retirement income. What accounts to tap first? I always say start with when you retire, list out all your assets, right? You're going to have some taxable assets, you're going to have some pre-tax assets, and you may even have some tax-free assets, right? Always go to your taxable assets, say in a brokerage account, joint account, accounts that have already been taxed, right? Start there. Then move to your pre-tax money. And then lastly, move to your tax-free money, your Roth money. The reason why you want to do that is you want that money to continue to compound as long as possible, because you don't have to pay any taxes on it, right? Once you've retired, your risks don't go away. Some people say, well, you know what, Gene, I always have heard once you retire, move everything into a savings account and call it a day. Well, I will say that can be problematic. So let's say, for example, you decided you wanted to move everything to the guaranteed interest account, also known as the stable value fund, pays 2%. And I believe Mike mentioned it earlier that inflation runs typically around 3% a year, right? So if your inflation is 3%, right, and you are owning 2, did you make any money? No, unfortunately, you lost 1%. So going and hiding in stable value or in a money market can be problematic, might possibly put you in a situation where you may run out of money. So you got to be careful there, right? There's longevity risk. You want to, think about that as well. That's basically, that you may live until you're 90 something years old. And if you start taking out money too soon, you could run out. Cost of living, prices of goods and services going up over time can erode your buying power. So that's a risk, and then obviously you have the market volatility. If you stay invested in the market on some level, you're going to see your money go up and down in value. So you have the market volatility. So there's some risk in retirement that you want to keep an eye on, even though you're retired and you're thinking, hey, I should be able to, live comfortably and not have to worry about anything. There's still some risk out there. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Here's an example of longevity risk. If you're a woman age 65, very good chance you can make it to 87. Same scenario for a man, you'll get to 84. And studies have shown 1 in 4 people that are age 65 will make it to 90 plus. So it's important to be thoughtful of your money, be cautious, make sure you're not withdrawing too much too fast. 65, this is the Medicare page. I'm going to skip through that, double back and schedule an appointment with the folks at SARAorg to get some more information there. And let's see. Okay, so you're 66 to 70. That's another milestone you want to keep an eye on. You want to look at the impact of taking Social Security benefits later, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Here's an example of a person, full retirement age, and if they waited until they were age 70, they would get a 30% bump, 32, I think it is. But you guys recognize my opinion, in terms of when to collect Social Security. But if you want to get the most bang for your buck, never mind what I'm saying or my opinion, there's your option. You may want to wait until age 70 to get that 30% bump from full retirement age. Spouses out there who are not working, you're eligible for Social Security if your spouse is paid into Social Security. So keep that in mind. There's a ton of people running around right now who assume they are not eligible for Social Security. And their spouse paid into Social Security all those years, you're entitled to some benefits. Go to SSA, Social Security Administration and confirm if your spouse does not work. I mean, because that could be that will make a difference in your retirement if you can get a little bit more from your spouse in terms of Social Security. 72 is the age in which you are required by law and mandated to take out the required minimum distribution, right? If you turn 70 and a half before January 1st, 2020, then 70 and a half is the age, right? But if you haven't hit 70 and a half yet, 72 is the new age. There were new tax law changes. So 72 is the age. You'll need to take out roughly 4%. And that's ballpark. It's based upon life expectancy tables. And just know that if you don't take out your minimum required distribution timely, then you could be subject to a penalty of 50% of what you should have taken out. So be careful. So let's say, for example, you're 72, 73, you're still working for the county. Minimum required distribution or required minimum distribution does not apply to you. So if you have any money in deferred comp, you're 72, you do not have to take money out. However, if you have a 401k from a previous employer, you have an IRA that you contributed to years ago, or maybe even you're still contributing to, right? You must take out your minimum required distribution out of those accounts. Okay? Even though you're still working for the county, RMD rules still apply on accounts, retirement accounts on the outside. So be very careful and thoughtful of that. Prudential typically will, once you leave county service, they'll send you a letter once you hit 72 to remind you to take this out. I would encourage you to make sure that Prudential calculates that for you and make sure they send that to you via electronic exchange. And the reason why I say this, it is what it is. You get older, and if you're taking out your RMD timely, you may forget 1 year, right? It happens, especially if you don't need the money. So that's why I would say, put Prudential on notice, make sure they calculate it for you and send it to you, okay? All right, we're getting close. Yeah, this is the end of the presentation, at least for the most part. So as I mentioned earlier, risks don't go away at retirement. There's still some risk. Remember, there's the longevity risk. There's the inflation risk. So those are some things you want to keep an eye on. Make sure you visit with your local financial advisor or the advisors on the plan to kind of review your situation. SARAorg is a website you want to go to calculate or get an estimate of what your pension will be in retirement. I talked about that earlier. There's a retirement income calculator on the Prudential site that I encourage everyone to take a look at. It kind of gives you an idea of whether or not you're on track to a secure retirement. You're not alone. You have Mark Tomei on the left through Wells Fargo Advisors, Jason Brummett on the right from Prudential, myself in the middle. We're here to help you navigate this whole retirement process. This is the number you can call to get in contact with us. If you want to bypass this 800 number and you want to talk to me directly, you can call my office at 510-562-6355, 510-562-6355, and you can have a conversation with actually Penny or Linda will answer the phone. Make sure you let them know that you're a county employee. That's code word for VIP. You get the first available appointment. So we encourage that. If you want to email me, that's fine too. You can email me at G_Hilliard, HILLIARD @emergefinancial.com. You also have the ability, if you'd like, you can log on to the Prudential site and schedule a virtual appointment or a phone appointment. We're not doing any in-persons yet, but you can log on to the website to set up an appointment. And with that, I'd love to entertain any questions. Any questions you might have?
Gene, there is a question.
Okay.
From the back, is it echoing? Sounds like it's echoing a little bit.
Okay.
There is a question from the beginning of the presentation.
Okay.
What do you mean by shortfall? Was the number supposed to be negative?
Yes, so the number is supposed to be negative.
Can you do that that calculation really quickly one more time?
Okay, or maybe it's not negative. Let's see. All right, so let's say hypothetically you make $100,000. That's your gross. You're subtracting, we said 50%, so subtract $50,000. And then let's say you're subtract, so that leaves us at $50,000. And then let's say hypothetically your Social Security is 25. So actually it's not negative. So that would leave a shortfall of 25,000. So your goal is to get to 100, right? And you're only getting 75 in guaranteed income. So that leaves you at a $25,000 shortfall. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying. So it's like the shortfall that you're trying to make up with savings in the 457B plan that you're not going to get from the combination of a SARA's pension and Social Security.
Exactly.
In order to maintain the income that you need, the annual income that you need.
Exactly, which is at the very top. So I said that take that 25,000, whatever that shortfall is, times 20, and that's roughly how much you'll need in retirement savings.
Okay. Shortfall times 20. And there's a comment that says, thank you, Gene and Mike, excellent presentations. Thank you very much.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. The burning question, anyone else? Put us on the spot. I'll stop the share here. There we go.
Well, I think we'll end the video right there.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, thanks everyone who's watching the video.